Good morning, boys and girls. So today we're going to start looking at comparing decimals. With comparing decimals, this is still going to be with the tenths and the hundredths. We are still going to have to work on the converting back and forth between the two, because with comparing decimals, there's going to be about 3 different ways that you can see this. The first way that you're going to see comparing decimals is, let's say that you had 0.5 or 0 5/10 compared to 0.3 or 0 3/10. Now, just looking at where the values are, they both go to the tenths place. So we don't have to change any of the values. We don't have to change the decimals into fractions because they are within the same place. So all you have to do then is look at the digit and look at the value that it has. So between 5 and 3, we know that 5 is bigger than 3. So we are going to say that 5/10 is greater than 3/10. The other way that you can see it is if it's comparing hundredths. Now let's say that we have 0.14 or 0 14 hundredths compared to 0.62 or 0 62 hundredths. Again, just like the other one, they do both go to the hundredths place, so we don't have to change the values, we don't have to add or take away anything, and we can just simply look at the values that are given and compare those two. So we can look at 14 hundredths and 62 hundredths. We can see that 62 is going to be greater than 14, so the way that it's written, it would end up being 14 hundredths is less than 62 hundredths. Now, the last way that you're going to see this, and there will be some times that these ones become whole numbers as well. We'll look at that as well. But the last way that we're going to see it is looking at comparing the tenths and hundredths. You're going to have to change a few things around. So, for example, let's say that we have 0.1 compared to 0.08. So we'd have 1/10 compared to 8 hundredths, since it goes to the hundredths place. Now, in looking at this, first of all, if you were to look at the value, say, oh, well, 1 is less than 8, so we can say that it's less than. However, that is not the way that we can compare these decimals. When comparing decimals, you have to make sure that they go to the same place. In order to do that, we're going to go back to what we talked about last Friday and Monday, and adding that placeholder, that 0, where it's needed to make sure that these values go to the same place. We are not going to change the hundredths because, again, hundredths is the last place that we're going to get to this year. So that means that we're going to have to do something with the tenths in order to get it to the hundredths. So thinking about our places, we have ones, tenths, and we have hundredths. There is nothing here right now. The only digit that we can use, the only number that we can use as a placeholder is going to be our 0. So you're going to have to add that imaginary 0 there to make sure that your decimals now go to the same place. So now in doing that, we now see that instead of this just being 1/10, it is also equal to 10 hundredths. So now looking at this new value of 10 hundredths, compared to 8 hundredths, we can now see that 10 is actually going to be bigger than 8, so we would put a greater than symbol. So the only time that you can just look at the decimals and compare them based upon their values is if they both go to the tenths or they both go to the hundredths. If something is different on the last one or on any one that you come in contact with, you have to make sure that they go to the same place. So a lot of times you will have to add these zeros on the end to make sure the places are the same. In talking about them having a whole number instead of just having the placeholder of 0, let's take a look at 7.7 compared to 7.82. So in reality, so it would be 7 and 7/10 compared to 7 and 82 hundredths. So again, This 82 hundredths, it goes to that last place that we're going to be working on. However, we have a 7/10 here. First thing that when you're comparing decimals, if there are whole numbers in front of them, use the whole numbers to your advantage, because sometimes the whole numbers will be different, and so that will automatically tell you which one is bigger, which one is smaller. For this example, the whole numbers are the same, so we are going to have to look at the decimals. Seeing that this one, our 7 and 82 hundredths, goes as far as it can go, we can come back here and say, okay, well, we need to change this one. So thinking back to our places, we have our ones, our tenths, our hundredths. We have something missing. We need to put that placeholder there. So we're going to put our 0 to actually turn this into 7 and 70 hundredths. Now that our decimals go to the same place, we can look at the values behind of 70 and 82. 82 is going to be bigger. So we can come back here and say that 7 and 70 hundredths, or 7 and 7 tenths, is less than 7 and 82 hundredths. For your practice today, boys and girls, it's going to be a worksheet that looks like this, just comparing some values as well. You do have some workspace on the side. I do know that some of us are going to have to keep using that separate sheet of paper. If you do, work it out there. Just make sure you keep a hold of it so that we can check it when we get back, and then you can also use it to answer your Google form. Okay, so we're going to throw a few of these together just to make sure we understand exactly what to do, and then you're going to finish this up by yourself, and then just let us know when you're done answering the questions on the Google form so we can go on and check those answers together. So looking at number 1, we have 2.04, or 2 and 4 hundredths, is less than 2 and 45 hundredths, or 2 and 2 hundredths. So since we're looking for a value that's less than, the first thing that we do need to look at is where our values go, where our decimals go. For number 1, they all go to the hundredths. So we don't really have to change anything around. We don't have to add anything. We don't have to take anything away. We also look at our whole numbers. We have 2, 2, and 2. Since our whole numbers are the same, that's going to tell us that we are just focusing on the decimals. So if we're looking for a value that is less than 4 hundredths, let's just think about this. We have 4 hundredths. Is this going to be less than 45 hundredths? That does not make sense. I apologize. Greater than 45 hundredths. That does not make sense, because 45 would actually be greater than our 4 hundredths. So this would not be our answer, but we are still going to double check. So then we need to ask ourselves, okay, well, we have 2 and 4 hundredths is greater than 2 and 2 hundredths. So again, our whole numbers are the same. So looking at those decimal values, we have 4 hundredths compared to 2 hundredths, and we can say that 4 is greater than 2. So the directions are going to tell us to circle the box with the decimal that correctly completes each comparison. So we are going to circle that entire box, and then draw models where necessary to help compare the decimals. For this one, since they all went to the hundreds, we don't have to draw any of those models. We don't have to add zeros, take them away. That's all that needs to be done. Now looking at the bottom of our worksheet, it's asking you for a riddle of why is Christmas the mummy's favorite season? In order to fill this out to find the answers. Your answer for number 1 was 2 and 2 hundredths, which is equivalent to the letter A. So wherever you see the number 1 within your riddle, that is where we're going to put the letter A. Moving on to number 2. We have 1 and 7 tenths is less than 1 and 89 hundredths, or 1 and 4 tenths. For this one, again, let's check our whole numbers. We have 1, 1, 1. So it's going to be our decimal values that are going to be less than and greater than that 1 and 7 tenths. We do have some that go to our hundredths, though. So since we have some decimals and some values that go to the hundredths, we do need to go in and add those 0 placeholders to make sure they all go to the same place. So now we can look at this and say, okay, well, we have 1 and 70 hundredths is less than 1 and 89 hundredths, or is it less than 1 and 40 hundredths? Thinking about the value of 70, can we say that 70 is less than 89? We can. However, we're not going to stop there. We need to go through and check and make sure that this one would not be an answer either. So we have 1 in 70 hundredths is less than 1 in 40 hundredths. Can we say that 70 is less than 40? We cannot. So that is going to tell us that 1 in 89 hundredths is our answer. Just like we did on number 1, boys and girls, number 2's answer is 1 in 89 hundredths, which correlates with the letter V. So on the bottom, wherever you see the number 2, we're going to put the letter V. All right, boys and girls, so what I would like for you to do now is go ahead and finish numbers 3 through 16, adding zeros, taking them away, changing those values as need be. Do not forget to check those whole numbers first. Make sure those all line up before you do move into the decimal values. Figure out what the riddle is telling you, what that answer is going to be. Do not forget to fill out those Google forms. Let us know when you're done, and we will check over your answers.